Welcome, everyone. It's Sandra Laub again with an interview with a grand, and today's grand is Maria Anna. Maria Anna, can you please pronounce your last name for us? You're from Poland.
Of course I can.
Thank you.
So the right pronunciation is Słomkowska.
Slomkowska.
Słomkowska.
Thank you. And we are here on November 12th. Yesterday we had a grand opening of the gates, the portal on 11/11, and we saw an array of um, wonderful wise women. I urge you, if you haven't seen that recording yet, to go and see it. Maria speaks on that. And I gave her a little roadmap of where I want to go in this talk, in this interview. So let's just begin. I wanted to know more about your personal space, what we are seeing around you. And then we'll get to the physical objects, and then we'll move from there. So I'm going to adjust the view to speaker. I think speaker view will take you front when you start talking.
Mm,
Take it away.
okay.
What are we
Okay.
seeing besides your
Um,
beautiful face?
so hello everyone. Whoever's gonna watch it from uh, from tomorrow onwards. We don't know how many grants are gonna join. The door is open, as you said, and I trust that we will see a lot of women coming and joining the garden because this is the time, as I believe myself as well. Thank you for inviting me to this interview, to this space. It's really an honor to be able to share a little bit of my path. And yeah, we are in my private space. This is this space, which is 7 square meters. It's quite a tiny space. It's like my dollhouse, I would say, for the past quite a few years now. And when I moved into this space, I was living in a completely different world. There was no spirituality in that world. There was no connection to earth. There was no connection to my roots, to my ancestors. And the past 3 years, this space changed quite exponentially, I would say. So you can see behind me is my altar. And this altar was changing as well. It was developing in the past years, and it connects me to my ancestors. It connects me to the elements, because I believe we are all made of the same elements as everything on this planet. Which, when you give it a second thought, means you are literally connected to everything through those elements, especially when we know that the universe is fractal and holographic. It connects us even beyond that, but let's leave that for a moment. Quite recently, because in the past 2 years and last year especially, this altar is now empowered also with, you probably can see, this is Mother Mary. I'll try to move this a little bit closer so you can see, because it's quite interesting. It's a mosaic that I got for my first communion because I live in a Catholic country. I was raised not really in a religious home. It was more cultural. Everyone had their first communion. So no one even asked whether you want to do it or not. My family didn't go to church, but I had that. And I brought it from my mom's house last year, when I realized that there is a very strong connection between me and Mother Mary in a way that was completely unexpected, and that brings the Catholic upbringing completely upside down, because my connection with her and the view is nothing that we were ever taught in church. So there is that very strong divine feminine connection, because this is what I would call this energy. And I have been receiving a lot of guidance from that energy, from Mother Mary. It started with Mary Magdalene, then it went to Grandmother Anna, and then to Mary herself. And I feel very strong connection to that lineage, and that lineage is very present in my life. So it affects a lot that is happening now for the last year. So you'll see behind some of my paintings, there's a mandala that I was painting with women. I've been inviting women for full moon ceremonies that I was holding in my house, doing fire ceremonies, and all kinds of ceremonies. I love ceremonies. This is very feminine. We are ceremony priestesses by birth. And you can see this even with little girls. They are always doing all this magic stuff, cooking, brewing, and I've been the same. And now I claimed it back. And during one full moon ceremony, we were making those mandalas, and it just came to me to do it. So I just drove to an art shop, got the canvas and paints and everything. And I was just guided. There were some words that were coming. We were each painting a layer, and then we were shifting the canvas. So then the second layer, I was painting on another women's canvas. And then we shifted again, and then we shifted again. So the final result, every canvas had energy of every woman that was taking part of the ceremony. Mm-hmm. It was so powerful, because all of these mandalas are now working in different spaces with these women. It's just incredible. And there's a painting of Mother Mary that it's not finished, but I just had this very strong vision in my dream. And when I woke up, I saw it. I mean, it was just so clear, and I knew I had to paint it. So it's like halfway through, and it stays in this space with me. And I think there's one more very important part. It's this pillowcase that it's felted, it's sewn. I was doing a deep ancestral work on a feminine path last year, and I got very strong connection to my ancestors and to my descendants. It was a very powerful process. During this process, I got information from my ancestors and from my descendants. And at some point, I don't know, a few weeks later, I just got this vision that the roots are my ancestors and that the branches are my descendants in the tree of life. And I knew I had to manifest it somehow. And with all the ideas, eventually this happened. And you can see that there is words written. So I put all of the informations, all of the codes that I got from the ancestors are in the roots. And all of the ones that came from the descendants are in the branches. And then there's flowers and golden fruits and the sun. And it took me quite a while to do it. And I finished it at the end of February last year. And every day when I was meeting one of the messages, there were some stuff was happening in real life that was directly connected to that. So it was a spiritual and real life manifestation process happening all along, like a lineup of miracles. Absolutely.
What you're saying now, if I may, and thank you for taking us on this tour of your intimate space and your art and your craft. It's quite beautiful. You're talking about manifesting spiritually and in our reality plane. Because there's so much happening in the world right now, politically, the shifts are can feel fearful. My question to you had been before we started recording, is it enough to just sit with your candle, with your crystal, with your mandala, with your own personal private prayer? Yes, healing the self, healing your personal, um, your life. That's all very important work. And it
Mhm.
seems to me the intention is very powerful for yourself. And theoretically, I know that you can't heal anything unless you heal yourself first. But how do we go from there into the world to have an impact, to create healing, to protect those individuals, groups, people, our children and grandchildren who are going to suffer effects from these political shifts in a lot of the world? And you just said it right there. You saw, you experienced this connection. Can you talk a little bit more about how that's shown up in your life?
Um, yeah, absolutely. Speaking about the bigger picture and asking the question like, is it enough to, to sit with a candle, to sit with a crystal, to meditate? Um, I believe that first of all, we will all do as we feel called, and I think this is absolutely fine, um, because not everyone will have the will or the capacity to go and act, just do things outside. And I think this is absolutely fine because I believe really that everything is exactly the way it should be, even if it's extremely scary, even if it looks like the end of the world, and maybe it is the end of the world as we know it. But then with each end of the world, there is a beginning of another world. And it's something I was trying to pass as a message yesterday, but my quite interestingly, my internet connection got weak and the image froze, as Mariana said afterwards,
Oh, yes.
as I was sharing.
Yeah, I saw
And,
that.
yeah, a message that I got, which was the times seem to be very dark, both physically, because at least here it gets dark very early and it's only going to be darker and darker and darker until we come to mid-December or 21st of December. So the times seem to be very dark physically, but also politically, economically, environmentally, mentally for many people, etc., etc. But we need to remember that it's from the deep, deep velvet darkness that life is born. The womb is a very dark, velvety, dark place. And it's a place where the death occurs and then a rebirth occurs. And that's a female womb. And it's the Gaia womb, it's exactly the same. Cosmic womb, it's exactly the same. It's all fractal.
Yeah.
So the message I'm getting is fear not.
Yeah.
You need to, the world that we're living in will want us outside, will want us to be very scared, very scared. And then when you're scared, you react. So you can do all of the different things. And that's being disconnected. You can act just, will be pulling one way or the other. And then we might be witnessing really very frightening stuff. And we need to discern them like that, just really turn in to understand, okay,
Yeah.
how do I act from heart? And that's when the wiseness comes in, which is not really related, I think. It's, I don't know, it comes from silence. It comes from some sort of stillness that maybe we with. with age. I feel like everything really needs so we can build something new, and maybe that's gonna happen. But for me, I was very disconnected. So that's the thing. I mean, I lived the life of um, my life story is of massive disconnection because there was a family breakage. You know, my parents divorced when I was little. I lost connection with a lot of family members. I never knew one of my maternal grandmother. I never met her because she passed away when my mom was little. My paternal grandmother, I knew her, I loved her, but I've seen her a handful of, times in my life, maybe 5 times, maybe 6 times. And then she passed away. I moved out of the country as a teenager, and I lived in North Africa and in Asia between 12 and a half and 19. So like the most important, years when you really get your personality and your character and everything. And these were countries of completely different culture, completely different language, and different religion. So that was disconnecting me even farther, and living without my sister, without my brother, in a very toxic environment. In the sense that the adults I was living with had their own very significant problems that they didn't know how to solve. So there was addiction, there was abuse, there was everything. So the disconnection, I didn't know who I was, really. I was everything people wanted me to be, so I could feel safe, and feel I belonged to something. I was like a chameleon. I was everything and nothing. And I made a brilliant career eventually, and I was working in a corporate environment in media localization, which is quite interesting with regards to what we're doing right now. I was earning a lot of money. I was, a very big boss. And at the same time, my marriage went into pieces in a very bad way. And I think the last 10 years was like my personal last 10 years is a little bit like what we're seeing now in the collective. Everything was going into pieces, very dark times. Though my career was going up, and one thing, my private life was going down, my career was going up. And I came to a point where I knew that this environment I live in is completely not supportive for me. I had terrible health issues, and I just felt this massive void inside of me, like a really massive void that I can't fill with. There's nothing I can fill it with. So I didn't know what to do. And I met a grandmother, not my grandmother, a grandmother of a man I was dating. She was Norwegian. She spoke 3 words in English. So I started to learn Norwegian to be able to speak with her. And I would be traveling to Norway quite frequently. And my most important part of being there would be go to nature and go and meet the grandmother. And eventually, I didn't get it straight away, but eventually with time, because when COVID hit, that relationship ended. And I realized that I'm grieving most for the grandmother. And I didn't know why. And eventually, I was just crying oceans of tears. I understood that something important is missing. And I was ready. So that's when life said, okay, now you're ready. So how about you go to this workshop? And I was like, okay, I'll try. And there was like a first little opening. And slowly, I was, just letting in a little bit more of light into my life. And at some point, I realized I just can't stay in this environment, the corporate environment anymore. I need to do something else. But I was scared to death. How will I make my living? And I don't know anything. Who am I to be doing anything else? And all these things. And that was a journey. And eventually I stepped out 3 years ago with a massive ego still, thinking, oh, now I know I'm going to work with women. I'm going to, heal the world. I did I have a coaching certification. So now I'm just, such an expert. I can do everything. And, yeah, I smashed the wall many times. But with every step, something new was opening, and it's really miraculous. But I was acting on it. I was moving forward. I was falling. I was, taking one step forward, 3 steps back. I was so ashamed of what will people, I didn't even know. But then I realized that I'm so ashamed of what will people with whom I worked for 23 years, what will they think of me? Who am I now? I didn't know. My heart was open. I let God in, God as, the creator of all of this. And I didn't even know who that God is. I knew only a masculine God. But now I was learning that actually God could be a woman, that actually God could be both, but that the female is always first because everything comes from the female.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the God is not a punisher. That I'm the only one who's punishing myself, standing in my way. I had no idea what to do with it and how to say it to people. I would open my mouth and be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was moving forward. I was still going on and on and on and trying new things and reading and going to workshops and following some paths and just seeing what fits for me or not. And just really allowing for things to happen. And a lot of people are no longer in my life. I had to make some decisions for myself as well. I took a decision of quit drinking alcohol at some point. I took a decision of eat differently, of moving out TV from my house like 3 years ago, of reading different things, listening to different things, like different music, watching. Everything has changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And new people came into my life.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God. Yeah.
You started this organization, which synchronistically was happening at the same time as we were formulating Global Grandmothers. Can you tell us where you're at with that organization? Because that seems to be a fruition of the journey you're speaking of.
Yeah. So I already shared that, but I'll say it again. I mean, because this is one of the many, many miracles I've witnessed. 3 years ago, I was on holidays in the mountains in Poland with a friend of mine. And I woke up from a dream in the morning, so excited because that dream was really amazing. And I just sat in my bed saying, oh my God, I'm going to have an NGO. And she suffers from insomnia. She was just, in her bed reading a book and like, oh, good for you. And went back to her reading. And I was like, and then she looked at me and said, what is this NGO going to be about? And I was like, I don't know. I have no clue. So from my mind for almost 3 years, I was trying to figure out what is it that I have to do. And I was coming with all sorts of ideas, and they were dying the moment they were born. Um, and what happened is I was at my father's house. My dad lived 200 kilometers away from Warsaw. And he's 90 years old. And I was helping out, taking care of him. And I was knitting a blanket for him, which is there behind me. The blanket story, that's another thing. I was knitting a blanket. And eventually I realized when I was knitting, I had this download of information that everyone needs a blanket, just to cover themselves when they feel down, or they don't have maybe the best day of their life. That this, like the indigenous women, they would just go under the blanket when they needed some space from the world. And I got a blanket from that Norwegian grandmother. She gave me a blanket for Christmas. And me being vice president of global operations for Europe, traveling around the world with the blanket in my hand luggage.
Full
And I
circle.
was with it, and crazy. So I really, when I'm knitting it, just these things came to me because I wasn't thinking about it earlier. And that I need to organize women to knit those blankets for those in need. And that there's a lot of children and young people in crisis these days, more than ever. And that the intention you will put into the knitting, into just weaving every loop, the intention of love, acceptance, and like presence, presence. I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. That it creates a massive energy bundle, like light bulb, if you want, of thread. And that this needs to be distributed. And I was like, okay, I like it, but how will I do it? And then the words came, Grannies of the World Foundation. You need to create a foundation, an NGO, and it has to be called Grannies of the World. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Grannies? Like, can't we make it grandmothers? That's like more powerful. And the message was, no, it has to be Grannies because you need a lot of affection, of that love, that softness. It's no longer about, taking sword and a shield, and no, you need a lot of softness and love. And that's what my partner Anna, with whom I weaved that NGO into life, this was a very strong message she was getting as well. No, it has to be Grannies. I said, okay. So eventually, a few months later, we birthed it. So it started with the blankets. It started with weaving. And I got a powerful vision last year from the dragon energy. I got a rainbow dragon that came to me in my vision, and he told me, your name is Luminaria. You spin the light and weave a network of light. And that's your job. This is what you're going to do. Okay. Nice. And so I went to a weaving course, I take things seriously. I went and learned how to spin wool.
Wow. Uh-huh.
But then with this, I understood, okay, there are physical threads physical wool, but with the intention that we put in it, we weave light through it. And this is the spiritual also manifestation in physical life, because those blankets, yeah, it's just a blanket, one can say nothing dangerous, but the power it holds can change the world. And so this is how it started. But we understood at the same time that the word grandmother is very devaluated, that women don't want to be grandmothers anymore. They want to remain young. They want to, explore the world. They just don't want to look after their grandchildren anymore. Of course, it's not for everyone, but we see this tendency, and I know it's a massive thing. And we started to discuss with Anna that, we are both 50, I'm 51, she's 50. I have children, she has children. I don't know if we will have grandchildren, but maybe one day. Doesn't matter really whether we will have our own or not. But we started to discuss about it. Okay, so what is going to be our role? How do we move forward, and what do we want for our children? And we want a world of peace, of prosperity, of clear waters, of blue sky, of lush nature, and of joy and beauty. So we can just really enjoy life and enjoy being together. And it was so important for me from the angle that I come from a broken family. My family broke as well. So I divorced with my husband. He left the plane now 3 years ago. Mm. So it's me and the children, broken family bonds, a lot of guilt that I was feeling that, because of breaking that family. How do I move forward? I could blame everyone. I had so many people and circumstances to blame. And I've been there, and it didn't work any miracles. So I figured out, okay, I need to start with me.
Yeah.
And that's the journey that because it started some 8 years ago, but the last 3 years it was really about, okay, I don't want to react anymore to life. I want to respond. How do I do this? So I changed here, then I changed here, then I realized it's all in the body. Yeah. But I also need to take it out from the body.
Yeah.
And we thought that this organization is also important to keep company to women, yeah, who are maybe in our age, maybe a bit younger, maybe a bit older, who are lost as well. And they would like to start somewhere, but they don't really know where to start. So we said, okay, we want to create space for women to gather together and learn from each other, to reclaim grandmotherhood with power, to reclaim our power as women, as grandmothers, because we understood that our voice is very important. Because we see that young people are gathering, a lot of young people are waking up. But I had a very strong vision that in order for them to succeed, they need wise elders.
Yes.
They need their ancestors, living ancestors as well, to stand behind them in power.
Yeah.
To support them.
Yeah.
And that grandmothers are going to have a massive role in that.
Agreed. And you spin, you weave the tale so beautifully. How do you see your organization, the Grannies, working with Global Grandmothers, our organization here? How can we be synergistic?
So when we when we were creating our organization, from the start, I knew that it's going to be local and global. You know, I lived globally, I worked globally. I mean, it's like my roots are like mycelium all over the world. Um, and Anna is very rooted in Poland. She's like, so we're laughing that she's the massive root and I'm the massive wings. And together we make this dragon, angel, whatever it is.
Like an angel.
Yeah. And so when the organization, when our organization was born, which happened on the 22nd of July, I already shared that as well, the Mary Magdalene's Feast, which was, Mary Magdalene really chose that date for us and she invited us. You can hear my dog snoring maybe. That's not me. And a few days later, Hanna Jakubowicz-Mount, who is one of the Polish grandmothers, and she holds the Circle of Grandmothers, she texted me saying, "Oh, did you see this group on Facebook?" So I immediately went in and I was like, when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is the global part. It's happening at the same time. And we were so busy with our thing, but I was like, no, I still have to do something. I need to, just weave something here as well. And I think that a lot will still, a lot of elements will come in place and we will understand and learn more as we go how we can work synergistically. But what I've seen so far is we are doing, of course, things locally in Poland. And one of the things we did, because we're sort of doing two things in parallel. One is the blanket initiative, let's say. So we're gathering women, asking them to knit the blankets, and those blankets go to particular children. So every woman needs a blanket for a particular child. It's not anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And these children are from an SOS in northern Poland. So that's one thing. But the second thing is, as I said, creating this space for women to learn and gather. That's what we wanted. And we organized the first event we organized was on the 29th of September, synergistically with the event of Global Grandmothers Council Network on the same day and on the same hour.
And you had an array of beautiful items for us to auction. Yeah. And you were part of that.
That's true. There was a lot of black clay. Yeah, there was a lot of black clay, which is also a part of my journey in the past 3 years. I was doing a lot of ceramics in the first year after I left the company. I co-started a ceramic studio in Warsaw Old Town, which is still running. And that was my work with Black Madonna.
Okay.
Working with black clay. And that's the whole thing. I mean, we could do a whole series on that because really it's incredible. And some of those trays that were created around that time are still with me, and they were offered to the auction. And one of them went to Grandmother Susan.
Good.
And yeah, and she happily received it. It's with her.
Good. We want to continue that through commerce, through education, through you teaching us. The Blanket Initiative is a beautiful one, and I'm sure there would be grandmothers. Certainly globally, Leanne Hendrickson has her daily Zoom, and that's
we connected, and she actually, we
good.
connected, and she actually reached out to me exactly wanting to implement in Denmark what we're doing in Poland.
Yeah.
So we're going to speak later on this week to see how to do that. What I'm dreaming of, however, about a part of the blanket thing is to create like grandmothers, wise women of power, whatever we'll call it, Some call it summit. I'm not really fan of this word. I would want it more to be like a gathering,
Yeah.
in an online reality,
Yeah.
for sure, but with specific messages from the grandmothers, and that make that available for public. This is something I'm looking at organizing right now for here in Poland,
Sure.
to have those streams. So to have all of that recorded, be free for 48 hours for everyone to watch, and then close that free option and prepare videos, audios, and transcripts for future, and monetize this at not a massive rate, but still to be able to create more stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
finances have to flow, and we all know that. We
Yeah.
live in a material world, and that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And what I want to do, I want to give space there for Polish grandmothers,
Mhm.
so their voice can be heard wider, because there are circles of elders, but it's a very hermetic world, a little bit now maybe more open, but still millions of women have never heard of grandmother's circle in
Yeah.
Poland, you know.
Yeah.
So we want those messages. So, you know, they have different medicine. We want them to bring their medicine and share with exactly the questions you rose at the beginning. How do we go about what is happening in the world? How do we face fear? How do we face shame? How do we face depression? How do we face all the different things?
Right.
How can we empower women? And I want um, global grandmothers to join there too. I want grandmother Sharon to share hers. I want, you know, Mayana to come and share. I want Lian to come. And now I understand why I worked in media localization for 23 years, translating
Bring all that.
videos, doing subtitling. And it's because this means if Polish women are to listen to grandmother Sharon, someone has to translate, right? We need to prepare some graphics in Polish and so on. Perfect. I feel comfortable with doing that.
And that's how it evolves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then doing it the other way around. There is Polish grandmothers who have medicine that is universal as well. Can we translate that into English and make that available for grandmothers across the globe? This is how we're going to weave across boundaries, across languages, you know, above all of that. That was
Absolutely.
a vision I held in 2016, that we're going to do this.
How
And
many
now
languages do you speak?
I speak 3 languages. I speak English, French, and Polish. I
Mhm.
understand Italian very well. I speak a little bit. I speak a little bit of Norwegian. I speak a little bit of Turkish and a little bit of Arabic.
We need it
um,
all. We need Spanish, we need Portuguese, we need Hebrew, we need Arabic. This needs to go worldwide. We need to be able to speak a common language of peace, light, health, all of those descriptors that you spoke of. And we'll do it one summit by one summit, one Zoom call by one Zoom call, one daily Zoom by one daily Zoom. I'll tag Leanne, I'll tag Mayana. Everyone will know about our talk today. We're almost at our 40. Yeah, we're a little past our 40 minutes. You've been so wonderful today in answering my core question, how to manifest. Is there anything else you'd like to end with today, Maria? Send us off.
uh, yes, I think I would want to end with the staff and the sword, because I think this is also extremely powerful, about manifesting things, because and how ancestors are important. That's also the depth of the stories, for a separate conversation. But when I was born in 1973, my father, who's a cinematographer, spent a few months in Africa shooting a movie. And he spent time between Egypt and Sudan. And he brought from that journey different artifacts. So he brought some stones that he found in the Egyptian desert. And those stones they speak a lot, put it this way. And some other artifacts that were always somewhere in the house. And last year, I was in my shamanic training because I'm a Mesa career and an energy healer. This is something that happened on the path. Mm-hmm. And I needed a knife, something for cutting energetical cords for my training. And that's when I received from him this dagger that he brought from Sudan. And this dagger is all rusted. You can see a little bit. It's all rusted. Mm-hmm. And it's quite dull. I mean, it's not a sharp one. I didn't need it to be sharp. And everyone asked me, why don't you clean it? You know, isn't that the first thing you would do? Just clean the rust? And it was the last thing I thought of doing, actually. And as you can see, I never cleaned it. And it became quite obvious to me why a little bit later. Because it's not meant to cut anything. It's not meant to go to war. I don't need it to be shiny, you know. That's done. Cutting and fighting with a knife is over. And it can remain rusted. That's fine. Eventually, I even don't use it for cutting cords. I use a feather. But here, okay, I got it. I got it for Christmas. So Christmas 23. Fast forward a few months. My dad ended in the hospital and then he ended up in a nursing house. He's now closer to me. He's fine. And my task was to take care of all his things. And that's when this stuff came into my hands. And it's done of one piece of wood. It comes from Sudan. It belonged to a village. It was either a shaman or the I don't know how to even say it in English, like the head of the village. And it's very interesting because it has two. This could be a man. It could be a woman. For a reason, you know, the hands are like covering breast, chest, mm-hmm. But then there's obviously a woman on top.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything.
Yeah.
So a woman stands on the head of the man. This is how I see it. He is supporting her. And that's what Grandmother Sharon used to say. Men are the nurturers, the supporters, and women are the leaders. And I see it so clearly from the staff. So when I heard Grandmother Sharon say on one of the Zooms, the story of that this is the time to put the staff in the ground and the sword in the sky, I was like, what? I just looked behind, you know, myself. I saw this stuff that I brought from my father. I just put it in the corner because I was intimidated by it. I thought this stuff needs to go to a leader, you know. I was thinking who I should give it to. And I was even trying to do it. And I could not arrange a meeting with that woman. Mm. And I was like, what is happening? Why I can't get hold of her? It should go in her hands. And then I sat after that Zoom, I sat by my altar. I took the staff and the staff started talking to me. And the staff said, how much longer are you going to give away your power? What is it that you don't understand? You have to have your voice. You have to speak your voice, and you need to hold the staff in your hand because this is the time. And it was crazy, but I mean, I had such a massive download of information. And that was before the 29th of September.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then we called the gathering,
Mm-hmm.
and that gathering was absolutely incredible because it was like multi-generational, as you said, as you know. It just happened. It wasn't planned. It just happened. And it just happened that there were women from the grandmother circle who met there, and some of them didn't see each other in years. And staff was with me there. And I was holding the space, and at the same time in the circle there were grandmothers who hold space of women's circles for 25 years. So I could easily, just give away my power to them. But the staff was telling me, no, this is your space and you hold your space and it's okay.
Listening to
So I
those
believe
yeah.
this is really the time for each of us. We need to stop playing small. Who am I? Do I have enough certificates? Do I have enough experience? Am I good enough? Yes, we are good enough. We don't need certificates. We don't need degrees or anything. We just need strong connection to our bodies, to our hearts, and to our wombs. And it doesn't matter whether you have a womb physically or not. It doesn't matter. If you are in a female bodysuit, that's enough to hold your space. And you hold the space as big as you like. You want it to be small, make it small. That's okay. That it's as valid and as important what you do for your, even if it's for your family, even if that's not even the right sentence, because we are all connected. So everything we do for ourselves, everything we do in our little environment is automatically and directly feeding the collective, rising the vibration, and making a change. And if you're ready to do something bigger, wider, great. But if you just feel comfortable, doing it for yourself and your close ones, just stick to this. But do that. Don't turn a blind eye. Just do that. Hold your power.
Hold our powers. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Maria. Thank you. Thank you. I can feel the reverberations.
Yeah, I can feel it already.
Beautiful. Let's be in touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Sandra, so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Yeah, thank you.